Hello and welcome to Trinity Talk Live, water cooler conversation from a Christian perspective. I am Ken Coughlin. Thank you very much for joining us again today. Before we get started, before I introduce the panel, I did want to say really quickly, thank you to those of you that subscribe to our YouTube channel here and that have liked or commented on any of our videos. Just a quick reminder, that does help these get seen by more people. So if you do like this video or any of the other ones we put out there, please go ahead and give us a like there. We'll talk more about that at the end of the episode, but I appreciate it. And now let me go ahead and introduce our panel. What do you say? Seated over here to my right is Megan Connors. Megan is a wife and mother to 3 children, ages 11, 5, and 2. Good luck with that. And she's been born, baptized, and confirmed and raised right here at Trinity Lutheran. And so now she is raising her children at Trinity as well. Megan has degrees in early childhood education and criminology. She is a preschool teacher during the week and a Sunday school volunteer once a month on the weekend. Thank you very much for joining us, Megan.
Thank you.
And seated to my left is someone who might look familiar to people that have watched this show before. This is Greg Derwart. Now, Greg was, technically speaking, on our 4th episode, right. But here we're gonna blow the minds of the audience. I'm gonna reveal the secret, Greg, that only you know, and Liz knows, and I know nobody out there knows. Until now, they're gonna know. It was actually the first episode we ever filmed. We had filmed that one because that's when we were on vacation, and so Greg was kind enough to come in ahead of time and film that one with us. A little bit more reminder about Greg. Greg is the managing director at the Maryland Department of Commerce. He is currently heading up the Governor's Customer Service Initiative. His wife, Kelly, and 2 daughters, they all came to Trinity back in 2010. He plays the bass on the contemporary worship team. Matter of fact, if you go on our Trinity Joppa YouTube channel, by the time this airs, we should also have the video from the worship service from this weekend. And you look in the back, you're going to see Greg back there playing the bass on this weekend's worship.
We're in this
great
shirt.
job. We're in that shirt. Yeah, he was rocking it, man. He was doing a great job. He is a preschool teacher. No, wait, that's the wrong bio.
I don't remember that.
He is a deacon. He has been in the Passion Play with us, although I do tend to typecast him as villains. And he is the current chair of the Call Committee. Thank you for coming back, Greg.
Pleasure to be here.
So before we start with our current event segment, I do want to briefly say it's horrible. It seems like we're doing this every week nowadays with a new hurricane, but I do want to make sure that we say that our prayers here are with the people from Puerto Rico who have been affected by Hurricane Maria. I don't know how they're doing right now. I know at one point I read that the entire island was without power. And I know I've got, friends of friends kind of thing. I've got a lot of people that work with me at the law firm that have been over the years have been from Puerto Rico, and we got some other friends of ours from theater world that have friends in Puerto Rico. So I know a lot of my friends are out there really, really traumatized by this. So our prayers are with everybody out there that's being affected by that. I do want to get into our current events, and today we have 3 stories for our current event segment. The first story comes out of the state of Kansas. A female convicted murderer in Kansas filed a lawsuit this week. She is claiming that officials in the Topeka Correctional Facility have been imposing Christian beliefs on her and other inmates. The plaintiff, Sherry Weber Dunn, says officials have created a coercive atmosphere where inmates are pressured to spend their time in a highly religious atmosphere and to participate in religious activities and prayers, thus violating the Constitution's Establishment Clause. Weber Dunn claims that the coercive atmosphere includes Christian-themed radio and television broadcasts, an 8-foot cross, and proselytizing messages. As of yet, there has been no response from the prison system to the lawsuit. Our second story is one that kind of hits home to me. I think I've said a number of times on the show that I'm also a Christian apologist. So I knew this gentleman, not personally, but I certainly knew of him, and I do have friends that did know him. Nabeel Qureshi, he's the 34-year-old author of the book Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. He passed away on Saturday, September 16th. Qureshi was raised in a Pakistani-American Ahmadi Muslim family, but he came to faith in Jesus while he was reading the Bible. He was actually preparing to debate a coworker of his, or another fellow student at medical school. And in preparation for the debate and reading the Bible, he actually came to Jesus by reading the Bible. He later became an itinerant speaker with Ravi Zacharias International Ministries. In August of 2016, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of stomach cancer, and he spent months in very aggressive treatment, eventually including the removal of his stomach. And his body did finally succumb to the disease last week. Qureshi's memorial service was held on Thursday, September 21st, where he was eulogized by his mentor, Ravi Zacharias. Zacharias said he was a man of incredible undying energy, and it was a privilege to cover the globe with Nabeel Qureshi. Zacharias also addressed Qureshi's parents and said that his biggest heartache was the pain the family was going to feel at his commitment to Christ. His passion was tearing him apart over his love of his heavenly Father and his commitment to his earthly father and mother and family. But in the end, he did not care about those who fabricated stories about him. He did not care about those who tried to knock him off. He was willing to be an ambassador for Christ right to the end. Matter of fact, he was. His last post, he did a YouTube video, I want to say just a matter of a couple weeks before he passed away. So we'd like to say rest in peace, Mr. Qureshi. Our final story here today comes out of France. On Sunday, September 17th, 4 American college students were on a study abroad tour in Europe when they were attacked by a mentally ill woman while on in a French train station. The woman threw a solution of hydrochloric acid at them from a water bottle, causing them to be taken to the hospital. The attacker had a history of mental health problems. However, shortly after the attack, 2 of the victims actually went on Facebook and asked for people to pray for their attacker. One even stated that she forgave her. Courtney Silverling said, "I pray that the attacker would be healed from her mental illness in the name of Jesus and receive the forgiveness and salvation that can only come from him." Her friend Michelle Krug posted, "I ask that if you send thoughts and prayers our way, please consider thinking about and praying for our attacker so that she may receive the help she needs and deserves. Mental illness is not a choice and should not be villainized." So those are our 3 current event segments or stories for today. Let me start over here with Megan and ask if any of those 3, did anything stand out to you?
Definitely the second story. I just can't imagine, spreading the news of Jesus throughout the world and separating your life from your family, from your earthly mother and father. So I thought that was very brave and very heroic on his part. It's
got to be tough. I mean, again, I don't want to delve too much into my personal situation, but it's. But I kind of know what it's like sometimes to have certain people that you love very, very much who don't share this faith, and it's painful because number one, you know the truth, and there's consequences to that. But it's just when you love someone that much, it's I can only imagine what he was feeling. I mean, I'm not from an Islamic background, so I don't know, but it's my understanding that those members of that faith tend to be extremely strong in it, and the impact on a family of someone leaving that is very difficult, very difficult. So, what about you, Greg? What stood out to you?
They all resonate with me for different reasons. That second story also reminds me of the news reporter, I guess it was back in the 70s, that wound up writing the book and more recently the movie, The Case for Christ.
Oh, Lee Strobel.
Yes,
yeah.
Where he was trying to find research to disprove the faith, and as a result of that, based on evidence and research, come to Christ. So,
right.
So that's kind of interesting whenever you see those public stories about a conversion when someone was trying to disprove us and in turn they're saved. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, getting convinced himself, yeah.
And then also the story from France with the public, the Facebook story suggesting that we forgive immediately. That also reminds me of the story from a few years ago when there was a shooting in the Amish community, and they immediately forgave the shooter. And it's interesting because unbelievers don't understand how we can do that. And even as believers, it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but at least we get it. We understand, the Lord expects us to do that, and we understand that we should do that. But unbelievers just can't understand how we could consider doing that.
And we were having a conversation in our small group on Friday about things like that. It's like if you're, even as a Christian, you look at something like that. It's like if somebody were to do something particularly egregious to me or to a family member, or even in this situation, where somebody were to attack me or attack my loved ones with hydrochloric acid, it's like, wow, could I really step up and forgive them that quickly like that? And as I said, we were talking about this in a small group, and one thing we discussed is, you know what? Lots of times you look at it ahead of time when you're not in that situation, and you say, wow, I don't know if I could do that. But then when you're in that situation, the Holy Spirit gives you the strength to do it. It's amazing. Sometimes the things that look overwhelming that we could never really accomplish, when we need to, God's right there.
And I can tell you that, thankfully, I've never had a situation where I needed to forgive someone for something that severe.
Yeah.
But when there have been situations where I had to think about it, or I had to proactively move myself towards forgiving someone, it's amazing how much peace comes over me once that happens.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's liberating to be able to forgive.
Because you can't move on unless you forgive.
Yeah.
And a non-believer doesn't understand that. They want to hold grudges, and it's just easier to do that, but they don't find that peace unless they give themselves to God and say, okay, it's time to forgive this person.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Why don't we move on to our topic of the week, shall we?
Sounds good.
Our topic for the week this week is bringing Jesus into your home. Let me set the stage, and then I'll kind of turn things over. And we talked, just so you know, no pressure on these two, but we did talk ahead of time. And what I said, and they can vouch for me on this, I said, I don't mind if I start the ball rolling and the entire episode is just the two of you talking back and forth. So that's the goal, okay? That's what we're going for. So I don't know if I convinced you or not. So here's the scenario. Obviously, we all hear about, Sunday morning Christians or something like that. And where people, there's a certain phenomenon that, there's obviously the 2 times a year Christians, the people that show up for Easter and Christmas, and that's
the
about
Easter
it.
lilies and the Christmas poinsettias.
Yeah, exactly. But even more than that, you do have people that, will show up on Sunday mornings or Saturday evenings if they have a Saturday evening worship service. And that's pretty much it. That's the extent of, they're not opening their Bibles during the week. They're not, doing anything else in the church. And so for some people, I think, there might be some people that are very, very well intentioned, but they maybe they're getting trapped by the pressures of the world or whatever, the stress they feel when they go out into the real world, so to speak. And so what I wanted to do is just kind of have a casual conversation today about how we here around the table live out our faith during the other 6 days of the week. And maybe if there's any advice we can give to people out there about how they might be able to see Jesus in the rest of their life and allow him to be guiding them and see how they can allow him to guide them through the rest of their life. So I'm going to start over here with Megan, because my wife's got the camera on you. See, I'm paying attention. I've got yelled at in the past for not doing that, for her having the camera on one person, and I start the other way, I get in trouble. So I'm going to start with Megan, because I'm observant today. So let me ask you this. First of all, tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay.
All right? And then if there's anything that you guys do as a group or even individually to help live out your faith once you leave this church house building.
Okay, well, let me get started with my kids. I have an 11-year-old stepdaughter, Kylie, a 5-year-old son, Reese, and a almost 3-year-old going on 13, sassy little girl named Elsa. But we love going to church. We look forward to it. Even my youngest, is today church? Are we going to small group? Are we going to Bible study? So even at that young of an age, she knows this is what we do. This is part of our family's routine. We go to church a couple times, we go on Sunday mornings. We do Tuesday night small group. She knows her big sister helps out in the food pantry. So these are already instilled in their little lives that this is just what we do. We serve. We do this. But back to the Sunday school, though, they look forward to that. They love it, even though Elsa's in nursery still. She still gets a little bit of a little lesson with her nursery caretakers and whatnot. But I help out in Reese's Sunday school, and my husband just recently started helping out with the older kids. But even, I think the most important thing that I enjoy is when I pick them up, or if I'm there, they send home a sheet, and it goes over what they learned, the scripture they were learning. So I take that, and I take the scripture, and I write it on a chalkboard in our kitchen. So we kind of can focus on that during the week, because, my husband and I, we're a little bit more familiar with the Bible, but it's like building blocks with them. So right now they're learning about Genesis. So there's activities we will do during the week. We'll open the Bible. They have a Bible that we read every night, and we're working on Genesis just to follow along with what they're doing in Sunday school, and they love it. And there's even activities on the sheet that family fun or something. I mean, one time we made I think it was right before Christmas, we made an angel food cake. Totally didn't work out. It was the worst experience of my baking career, but you know what? They got to help. They got to learn about angels and that whole thing. So they just know that it's what we do, and that's what's expected of them. Even, every meal we say the blessing. If we're out in public, if we're at a restaurant, Reese will be like, all right, let's bow our heads and fold our hands, and we will do it. We'll say it. And we don't let the pressures of people staring at us stop us. We continue.
Well, I think your kids need to, people, families with children, your children need to see you living out your faith. Like you say, like, for example, you volunteer at your kids' Sunday school. I don't think you necessarily, for parents that think, well, I don't have the time to do that. I think what that does, though, whether you can actually serve in that capacity or not, but your children get a chance to see you
in action.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be limited to that way,
right.
But in everything you do, you keep in mind your kids need to see you living out your faith, and that's going to be probably a more powerful example than anything you can actually say to them. So, Greg, what do you do?
Well, one of the things that we did early on was when we were deciding to homeschool, we made a conscious decision that we wanted to teach all subjects from a Christian perspective. So we were very deliberate about finding curriculums that were from a creation standpoint, not just history, but science and everything. So that was something that was just ingrained into everything that was taught when Kelly was teaching them at home. The other thing, Kelly and I were talking about this, it's just important for us, not only are we infusing our faith into what we do, but we're also very conscious about making sure that we keep the world out of the house as much as possible, whether it's not having cable or being mindful of the music we listen to. So it's just speaking to being in the world but not of the world. So it goes in both extremes. Music is a big part of our life. So when the girls starting express an interest in playing music and singing, so they've written songs and they're always from a Christian perspective. So that's something that happens all week.
Yeah, but something I like about just watching your family is that you say your girls have gotten an interest in music, but just using today as an example, your girls were both on up here leading worship, and so were you. I mean, it's something you do together.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy doing it is because it's something that we can do together.
Are we going to have the Derwart family singers anytime coming soon?
Well, they don't give me the mic.
With good reason. Well, yeah, and I think that's it's important to understand as when you're dealing with children and parents the responsibility that you have. And you mentioned that being careful what you listen to and what you allow in. That's something we were just talking about in last week's episode. We had Ryan McAllister and Alan Scott, both recording artists, and Ryan, the contemporary worship leader here. That's one of the things we were talking about is, being very mindful of the fact that I think it was Ryan who said that, certainly, there's no such thing as music that is benign. I mean, all music, and we were talking about broader than that, but he was specifically talking about music. It's got a message that it's trying to communicate. And, part of what our job is as parents is to be mindful of that and understand what messages are getting communicated to our children. So I'm interested. So you don't have cable at your house?
Yeah, we haven't had cable for, at least 8 or 9 years. So we cut the cord even before that's what we knew we were doing. Yeah, but just before it became popular.
Before everybody else was doing it.
Yeah, right.
You started the trend.
I did. Yeah.
So no, but that's interesting because I know you and I were talking ahead of time before the episode about the responsibility a parent has for the education of their children, and I think that that moves. I mean, you obviously homeschooled your girls until high school. Is that when they?
We did it through middle school, and now they're at Hartford Christian.
Yeah, but education is more than just schooling, like you're saying. There's it's being mindful of all the influences and everything that are going to be teaching them something, even when we're not aware of it.
Right.
So, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, we're in the process of trying to break away from cable. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's nothing but negativity on it. But I can't even watch the news because I'm so scared my kids are going to see it and ask me questions that I'm, one, not prepared to answer, or two, I just don't I don't want them subjected to that right now. I mean, they're babies still. I don't, I can't shelter them from everything, but the amount of stuff that goes on, it's ridiculous. It's sick, and I'm not prepared for that yet. I just want to keep them babies as long as I can.
As long as you can.
As long as I can. But, I mean, there's a time and place to start discussing certain issues. But, I mean, there's so much hatred.
And you can still have conversations about current events
right
at the table
exactly
without having to tee it up through CNN.
Right.
Well, especially since nowadays everything that you see out there has, it seems to me, somebody will probably correct me if they think I'm wrong, but it seems to me that there is no such thing anymore as objective news reporting.
No, it doesn't make sense.
And maybe it's just, I don't know what the term is for it. We all look back on our youth and think, oh, those were the glory days. But, I look back to news reporting when I was younger, and it seems to me that it was more objective.
Yeah.
They had some standards there. I mean, I remember when I was in 8th grade, and I was taking my 8th grade social studies class, that one of our assignments, the very first class, the whole class had to vote on an anchor. They had the 3 major network anchors. And as part of our assignment, we had to watch, I think it was one day a week, we had to watch the evening news, and we had to submit a report the following day. And so, that kind of showed me, I won't say so as not to bias anybody against who has their favorite news anchors from that era. I'm not going to say which one the class chose. It wasn't the one I voted for. That's all I'm going to say. So I had to watch somebody I wasn't as big a fan of. But it just seemed like there was more journalistic integrity and an attempt to not inject opinion into everything. Yeah. And so now you're right. I think you can discuss current events at the kitchen table, and it's probably a lot better to do it that way, because if they're your kids, or frankly even yourself, if we're getting our messages about what's going on in the world from these biased sources, we're not getting it in an unbiased way.
And you as the parents can control that conversation.
Right.
So you can gear it to however you want it, by being appropriate with it, but once it gets out of hand, it's all how you handle it, and you control it.
And I got to say, nowadays, I think it's easier, again, if parents are diligent about it. We live in the on-demand era. What I mean by that is so much, I think that the network television programs are almost going the way of the dodo. It's like you can choose, you can be very specific, whether it be through your, YouTube programs like this or whatever, that's kind of the way our family's gone. We actually don't watch a lot of even network television anymore. Sure. It's more selective, It's like we pick, or this is the program that we're going to watch. And we have things that we do watch as a family because they bring us together, but it's stuff that, my wife and I have kind of decided, okay, this is appropriate for our family to watch. And so when it's a good time for our family, we'll get down and we'll watch that program.
And it's been so nice the past 10 years. There's been such a increase in Christian-based entertainment.
Yeah.
You look at is it the Kendrick brothers from Georgia that have been doing the movies, and
yep.
They're the apps you can get, on streaming. There's so many more Christian-based resources that are available. So,
well, there's a whole. I don't want to turn this into a big giant advertisement, but and I know if I start listing off companies, I'm going to forget them. But there's one.
Pureflix.
Pureflix is a good one. That's kind of like from fictional movies and television program. And then of course there's what we have here, uses here at Trinity Right Now Media, which has children's programming on it, but then also has Bible studies, lectures, and they have a whole. I go gaga over it because there's a whole apologetics tab that I just I could spend a whole day on that. But yeah, so you have the opportunity to be more proactive, I think, as a parent. And I guess I want to make sure we're clear. It doesn't even just necessarily mean parenting. It applies to you as well.
Oh,
we're all influenced by things that even we don't necessarily realize we are. And so we have to be mindful we allow into our own minds as well. And being able to go to those resources like you're talking about, I think allows us to control what we take in. To be more careful.
Just like choosing healthy food.
Choosing health.
Junk in, junk out.
Didn't Jesus tell a parable, something along those lines? That's the summary version. Junk in, junk out. So, let me ask you in your personal life. Now, forget about the kids for a second. All right, what do you do personally to help make sure that you're keeping Jesus at the forefront? Because let's face it, lots of times as a parent, you put your kids first
and put you on the back burner.
Exactly. So what do you do personally to make sure that your relationship with Jesus doesn't suffer?
I pray constantly. I pray all day long, and every opportunity I get, I can honestly say I pray. And it's about every situation. You know, there's things at my job, since I work at a preschool. I don't understand. I don't understand why things happen the way they do with certain kids and some families and everything, but I pray about that. In the morning when I'm getting my children ready to be dropped off at my parents who watch my kids, I have a devotional. I will wake up a couple minutes earlier and sit there and read a couple pages of that. And if I can tell if I miss a day, I'm like havoc in my brain. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't have the organization. I don't have the drive. I feel what it takes to complete my day in a successful manner if I miss that. So I really enjoy reading my devotional. And even I have a friend that was, we were prayer sisters a couple months back, and she sends me scriptures every day. So and it always comes at the right time. You know, if I'm like having, you know, something going on, I'll open my text up or something. I'll be like, oh, okay. And then I read it, and it always seems to apply to exactly what's going on. So that's kind of what I try to do.
What about you, Greg?
I can tell you that having a small group helps keep you focused through the week. Another thing that I've been doing this summer, I started using my Bible app for daily devotions. So I'm an early riser. I get up early, and I'm using the Bible app to go through different devotions, and I do that before, you know, I do anything else.
It's a way to start the day.
Yeah, and that's been very helpful.
Yeah, and I will give you a second on the small group thing. My wife and I live on pretty much the opposite side of the county from where the Trinity Church is. And the problem we've had for many years is until I started working here 2 days a week at Trinity, I worked 5 days a week down in Baltimore. And it was always difficult. We always wanted to join a small group, but the problem was, you know, what am I going to do? I'm going to drive from Baltimore all the way up to our home, and then, you know, which basically passing the church along the way, you know, pick up my wife or whatever, and then come back to Trinity for the small group. And so we've been trying for a while to get one started up in our neck of the woods. And we just did, and we finally just had our first meeting on Friday night, and it was more of a get to know you kind of meeting, and it just went fantastically. Great. I thought it was a lot of good connections there, and we're about to start here at Trinity. For those of you that do subscribe to our YouTube channel, we're starting a 8-week study, right? Yeah. 8-week study on Darren Spoo's book. I'm drawing a blank on it.
It's like is it the 40? It's the books of the Bible.
The Good Book. Thank you. It's called The Good Book, and it's a 40 days worth of readings, Monday through Friday, and it highlights the 8 major themes of the Bible to help walk you through it. And so our small group's going to be starting with that here pretty soon. But I mentioned it here on this program because if you look around the Trinity Joppa channel, we also do have a playlist called the Weekly Message, which is the sermons from that week. And so starting next week, in addition to the regular Bible studies, there's going to be a sermon each week focused on something from that, a sermon series based upon the Good Book. So I'd encourage anybody, if you want to get it, I mean, you can get it on Amazon, ChristianBook.com. If you want to follow along, the readings start on Monday. If you go to our Trinity Joppa Facebook page, not the Trinity Talk Live Facebook page now, but the Trinity Joppa Facebook page, every day, automatically, it's the reading for the day is going to be published on there. So if you, it's got a link right to it, to Bible Gateway, so you just go in the post, you click the link, and you'll have the reading for the day, and you can follow along. It'll be really fun. So any last thoughts anybody wants to share that we haven't covered?
I know with my small group, that's like been a godsend to us. I mean, we've been a part of it for about a year and a half now, and my kids love going because it's about 7, 8 families, and it's the husbands and wives. They sit there, and we have a regular Bible study, and the kids can play, but we bring them back in for prayer requests and to be part of the prayer or the prayers that we do, and they love it. And it's just, we're modeling that so they can see it and they love it, and that's a blessing right there. Yeah. So I mean, they look forward every Tuesday coming back here to do our small group.
That's great.
And if I'm remembering my calendar correctly, you guys have no idea what a great transition you just made because the topic for next week's Trinity Talk Live is the benefit and purpose of small groups. It's amazing how the conversation just led us there. But if I'm doing my math right, yeah, that's next week's episode, right? My wife's nodding. She thinks so too. I believe that is next week's episode. So, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys both coming here today. This was great.
My pleasure.
So, hey, and thank you all for tuning in. Again, if you like this video, like I said at the very beginning, do me a favor. Go ahead and click the like button. That's a thumbs up button here on the YouTube page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you will stay up to date on everything that we have going on out there. But most of all, if you could share this video. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Twitter, share the link to this video to other people that you think might be able to benefit from it. That helps us get the word out, and obviously we want this ministry to reach as many people as it possibly can. We do have our own Facebook page. I mentioned Trinity Joppa, the church has a page, but also Facebook, Trinity Talk Live has a Facebook page at Trinity Talk Live Podcast. Please give us a like on there. We do post things about what we have coming up on future episodes, and you can use that to give us feedback maybe about questions you have about episodes or ideas you have that you'd like to see us cover in the future as well. Again, we are going to be back next Tuesday at 12 noon, where the topic, as I said, I think is going to be the benefit and purpose of small groups. If I'm wrong, then I'll be embarrassed and I'll apologize on next week's episode, okay? Thank you very much again. Thank you, Megan Connors. Thank you, Greg Derwart. I forgot to mention they're second cousins. I left that out of their intro at the beginning, so in case you're wondering how great they go together, they talk to each other, because they knew each other coming in, so for quite a long time, all right? Thank you very much again, everybody, and God bless.
In your word we will follow.